5 o'clock.
Good evening, everyone. It's 5 o'clock, June 28th, 2022. It's time for our monthly meeting of the Board of Directors for the Glasgow Electric Plant Board. At this time, I would like to call the meeting to order. The first item is the approval of the agenda.
So just a note, the agenda is the same as what was sent out in the packet, but I swapped items 4 and 5. I put consider approval of amendments to the current fiscal year as number 4, and consider approval of budget for next fiscal year as number 5. But they're the same items, just in a different order.
Okay. So we'll need a motion to amend the minutes.
Well,
No, you got to
approval of
approve the
agenda.
agenda first. We didn't approve it. He
We're
just
going
made
to
a
approve
comment
it?
about
Okay, I need a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion.
Have a motion by Witcher,
Second.
second by Stevens. Any discussion or questions? If not, all those in favor of approving the agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say no. Motion passes. So now we need a motion
yeah,
to amend the minutes.
so we have the minutes of the last meeting, and we have one really change or correction. It's not a change, it's just a correction to the minutes on item number 8, which was the nomination of new officers. The motion, or the agenda item read, Haynes made nomination to appoint Glenn Pritchett as chairman, and then it was repeated instead of having a second. We went back to the video and verified that Haynes made the nomination to appoint Glenn Pritchett as chairman, and Witcher seconded that motion, and it was unanimously voted in the affirmative. So the proposed correction to the minutes is just to cross out the second sentence where it says Haynes made the motion, and to add Witcher seconded.
Someone needs to make that motion.
Yep, okay, we need a motion then to amend the minutes.
Make that motion.
Okay, we've got a motion by Witcher. Do we have a second?
I second.
Have a second by Jones. Alrighty, all those in favor of the amending the minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed, say no. Motion passes.
Now we just need to approve those amended
Okay.
minutes.
All right.
If there's no other changes, then you can go ahead and
Okay.
somebody make-
All right, so we now need a motions to accept the corrected minutes.
Just to approve the minutes.
Just approve the minutes right now.
I make a motion to approve the
Okay,
minutes.
we have a motion by Jones,
I'll second.
second by Stevens. All those in favor of approving the amended minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed, say no. Motion passes. Okay, I believe we're on to number 2, the approval of the minutes of the previous meeting.
Oh, number
No,
3, that's what we just did.
did. Yep,
Oh,
on the
okay.
write-offs.
All right, the write-offs, we're at the write-offs. Okay, the write-offs, and I guess Melanie's going to discuss this.
Yeah, we have, so twice a year, we basically make decisions on accounts to write off. The last time we did it, Melanie, was what?
December.
December. And this is the second time annual time we do this, so she's going to review those write-offs for the last 6 months.
So the write-offs, and I think it does say it there at the top of that page, I meant to look, but these are for accounts that were closed out or during June through November of 2021. So we're doing a 6-month look back, but because we're doing a 6-month period, you've got some that are 12 months. But like Dave said, we do this twice a year. Customers are sent, these are generally final bills. Customers that may have just left their address and moved and forgot to pay that bill, or they were disconnected for non-pay and we didn't see them after that. So once they are sent their final bill, and if it's not paid, we'll send them a second notice. And then if it's not paid after the time period passes, then it goes into the write-offs. And then those are sent to a collection agency, and they pursue those for us. We don't stop doing them ourselves, so if a customer comes in to set service, we look to see if they've been a customer of ours previously, if they have any old bills with us. So we can collect those as well as the collection agency. So we don't just turn them over and it stops. We continue to pursue those accounts.
Do you have very many that come back in?
We do have several.
Request turnover?
Yeah, we do catch quite a few on those. And actually, for this 6 months, the total is down pretty significantly from the average. We average between 50 and 60,000 for every 6 months. Of course, during COVID, there was about 9 months where we couldn't do disconnect. So we did see a large jump last time in December. But then this time it's gone back down to about 37,000, which is very good.
Yeah. So there's quite a few people on this list. I mean, are they typically moving out of town and they just leave?
It's just, yeah, different things. Some of them
Yeah.
will just move, some of them get disconnected and they move in with somebody else.
Yeah,
And
put it in someone else's name. Or,
right,
Yeah.
right.
Okay. And then do we need a motion to approve the write-offs?
Yes.
Yeah, because we're basically approving the writing off this 37,000.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Is that all then?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thanks.
Unless you all have questions for me.
Well, just real quick on that commercial account that we see, I don't want to go into any specific names or anything right now, but I mean, I'm sure that's been pursued to its
Yes.
fullest, and then this is just as far as we could go with that.
Yes, and
Yeah.
there actually is another account on there that account was put into the second
Okay.
person's name, who's also on this list. And we do get deposits and, with these accounts, by the time they're turned off, they're more than 2 months past due normally,
Okay.
because we bill a month behind, and then they get that grace
Right.
period, and then, before we can get them turned off, even with a large deposit, sometimes it can leave a
Yeah.
pretty significant balance.
So are there rules with commercial account, like with residential, there's
They're the
pretty-
same.
Pretty hard and fast rules, but with a commercial or industrial account, if they have a history with us, it would seem like we could require a larger deposit.
So with commercial accounts, we require a deposit every time.
Okay.
Yeah.
But could we make it, if we have a history with them where they?
We do, it's based on the same thing, so we look at their credit history. Sometimes commercial accounts, if they're pretty small, we may do a minimum $200 deposit, but normally we look at what is the average where they're moving to, or what do we expect them to use based on, if it's a similar company that's moving into.
Number 4 is the consider approval of budget for the next fiscal year.
Yeah, so this is looking at the amendments first on the agenda that was approved tonight. This is
This is the
just
one
a
that
different order.
that's
Yeah,
the two
we
we
do this
flipped,
one
so
right
you
there.
may be looking at the old one.
Yeah.
Okay.
So number 4
Number 4 is
is.
to consider approval amendments to the current fiscal year.
So we have basically a budget process that's outlined by the Department of Local Government, and it requires us to create a number of steps. First, there's the budget for the year, and then when it comes toward the end of the year, which June 30th is the end of our fiscal year, then we have to present an amended budget that basically is looking at what we think the results are going to be. And then, once the books are closed, we present the final results. And so what this is it's the amended budget and the current year estimates and the budget as amended. So I'll turn it over to Melanie to walk through that.
Sure. And like you said, this is the format that the Department of Local Government requires. So I know you're looking at it thinking, wow, that's an awful big number there. That's just one number, and I don't see the breakdown. But you get monthly information on that in your packet. So this is just a lump sum is what they would like. So the first thing you're looking at there would be the amended budget.
We're looking at this one with the 2
I'm
columns,
sorry,
right?
yes, that's 2 columns filled in, yes. So
So
that would be the amended
This is
budget,
the one we're looking at.
yes, for 2022. So the first column there is what the board approved last June for this current fiscal year. And of course, you see that says estimates, so you are approving a budget, but as you all may or may not know with utilities, it's hard to stick with a budget, especially when you're looking at revenue amounts, because that is largely determined on weather pattern, you know, what happens with the weather. So this is basically an estimate. And then the second column is, basically we look at that after either April or May and see where we are so far in the year and what we expect to happen in the last month or two of the year. And then we make adjustments based on that. So that's where you see the amended column. And you'll see the operating income is up just slightly from what we had estimated. Of course, that could change because a couple of these months are still estimated in there. The big difference is in the operation and maintenance expenses, and the majority of that is in the power cost. So when we do these budgets, we look at historical data. So we look at what have we sold, how many kilowatt hours have we sold in the past, and what's been our cost of goods, I guess you could say, or the power cost relative to those sales. And we had expected to be right around 69%, and so far through May, it was at 71.5%. And of course, we made changes last year in June, which the rate structure changed. We no longer had that variable rate where people were watching what they were using, so the sales were lower. Once we changed that, we really didn't know what was gonna happen. You know,
Yeah.
people that were used to doing that, would they continue to try to cut back, or would they go back to what they were doing before? So this year was sort of a, okay, we'll have to wait and see, let's base it on what we think maybe they'll do and go forward. So
Yeah.
that's,
Oh, sorry,
Go ahead.
the other item in that operation and maintenance, though, that's where the sick time policy
yes,
change.
yes.
And-
So there are also two other items in there which are in regards to personal leave payout. We did change our policy on that in
And so that was,
the spring, I'm not
it's
sure.
showing up in the operation and maintenance expense as amended, but it wasn't a cash charge. So what we had was prior, there was a vacation and sick policy. And then several years ago, it was changed to paid time off. And there was this old accrued sick time that was hanging out there that if people didn't use it, they lost it. But then there was a bit of gaming of the system going on, so we just decided to make it all paid time off. And so then, instead of sitting on our books as not a charge, it hit the books as a non-cash charge, you know, because it was now a benefit that we had to accrue, so.
Mhm.
And then I think the severance payout was in that
It was.
amount too. So the three things really going on in that operation and maintenance expense are the elevated, a little bit higher power supply cost relative to revenue. The change in the way we account for paid time off and sick time. And then also the last year there was a severance payout sometime in August, I guess it was paid out, or September.
Mhm, mhm.
And, you know, those are things that won't be in next year. So while the power supply cost is, you know, we're gonna be working on managing that now that we have a year to see what happened, like Melanie said. Now we'll react to that and see how we might, you know, make adjustments in the future. But those two non-cash items, the paid time off change and the severance won't be in, you know, next year, so.
And you'll see the rest down through there, the taxes other than income, that is what we pay, and we pay what's called in lieu of property taxes, so it's not straight property tax like you and I would pay, but it's based on our plant value, so that rarely changes. And then under the other income, that first line item would be just any miscellaneous income we might get, but the majority of that is from our broadband services. And then we have interest and interest expense, and it comes down there to the bottom line. So you can see there is a pretty large difference there, about $1,300,000, $1,400,000. But like we just talked about, that's mainly from those O&M changes.
So just to help me understand just a little bit, being a new board member, it's kind of hard to understand a moving budget. If a budget is a budget, you know, it's something we try to shoot to and stick as close to as we can.
Right.
And then how we're able to amend that halfway through the year. So kind of, I know you probably did a little bit, but help me out just a little bit there, Melanie. I'm trying to understand that, like why we want to adjust this halfway through the year. What's that compared to actuals? You know, like how do we arrive at this?
And so with your monthly packet, you will get that. It will show also a sheet that has actual compared to projected. So it's going to show you that as well. So this basically is just a formality. So
Is
we're
this to try to keep us closer in line? Hey, we are moving this way, we need
Yes.
to pull back here?
correct.
Or- Okay, okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this is, you know, these are just reports we have to send. So they're just gathering information. We do use this as a tool for you all to look at and see as an overall budget, where do we want to be? So as far as actually saying, okay, we're gonna amend this and move money here and there, that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
It's more like you said, let's see where we are and let's get closer to where we wanna be.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, I would, just to hopefully go further with answering your question, I think that when we look at this next year's budget, our goal will be to be closer to it next year than we were this year. There's three things. One of them was a bit of an unintended consequence. It was the non-cash charge for the change in paid time, the way we handled that
Yeah.
sick time. That was one that, you know, I've more or less pushed for that change and didn't really realize the way it would hit the books. But it's a non-cash charge, you know, it's not hitting us with, either way, we were gonna be paying that out more than likely.
Yeah.
But it went to the books as a non-cash charge. The severance pay was not budgeted. You know, that was just not an item that was in the budget, so that's a special type item. And then not really knowing what the impact was gonna be on the move back to flat rates away from the residential demand rate. We didn't really know how it would impact the budget. So now this year, we've seen that, and we'll work to avoid any of the special items as well. And I would anticipate that when we do this next June, it'll be, the budget as amended will look closer to what was originally estimated.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna stake my career on it, but.
Yeah.
No, but I really do.
No, I mean,
think-
it's, yeah.
So, does
Well,
that make?
appreciate
It is,
Yes,
it is a
absolutely.
different
Yeah.
animal, than
Yeah.
normal
Yeah.
budget.
Yeah, it was a different year than normal for sure,
Mhm.
so, but we got through it,
We got through it, that's right.
so.
And the other sheet is the current year, which would be for fiscal year 2023 for you all to approve. And you'll see there, the bottom line is at 1.9, which is, you know, closer to where we would like to be with the other,
So,
the cap.
Hey Mel, I think what we have right now is number 4.
Oh, I'm sorry, we need to
Yeah,
do those
that's okay.
separate, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was just gonna be sure you did your amendments first, once you got finished talking about it. But,
Yeah.
you know, we're still on item 4, which is the
Let's-
amendment, so
so we
don't take
just,
action on that.
we just did the walk through the amendment, so now what we'd be looking for, I think what you're looking for is
Okay.
a motion
Yeah.
to approve the amendments.
Yeah, at this time, I'll entertain any motions to approve the amendments to the current fiscal year.
Motion.
Have a motion by Witcher,
Second.
second by Jones. Is there any further discussion or questions?
One more question about the severance. How did the severance only hit one time? Is it not a year after year? Did the policy change on severance to where we used to offer severance, now I mean, how does this?
We didn't have a policy on severance, so
Okay.
that was part of, the employee that left.
Yeah, the
That was
former
part of the
superintendent.
package.
Okay, okay,
Mhm.
okay.
So it was a one-time.
I don't mean to be digging up
No,
little
well-
things, I'm just trying
Yeah.
to
No,
find a
that's
little more
fine.
clarity on this,
Right.
and, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Is
that's all the
there any
question.
other, any other questions or discussion? Okay. If not, all those in favor of approving the amendments to the current fiscal year signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say no. Motion passes. Now we're on to number 5, consider approval of budget for the next fiscal year.
Yeah, so just moving forward, July 1st is the beginning of the new fiscal year. And I will, as I turn it over to Melanie again, that this proposed budget does include a forecast rate adjustment toward the end of this year, toward the end of this calendar year, around October. So just.
So is this public information? Is that something that's been just, never mind.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, we don't have all of the work done on what we're gonna propose yet, but just with, you know, the various costs that are increasing, we're looking at how we can make adjustments, and that'll be definitely a future board item that we'll be
Yeah.
discussing. Just so you know, though, that this budget,
That's where we see that slight increase?
yeah,
These are projections.
yeah, it's a
Right.
projection.
Educated projections.
Right.
Yeah.
So with that, Mel, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. Right, so we did put an increase in there, and, you know, we don't have that amount nailed down exactly, so this is just an amount that we put in there for now. It can change. You'll see the O&M expenses are higher, which is what we expect this year after seeing the results from last year or the current year we are in. Everything else there, relatively the same again. We don't see a lot of changes. The electric service is the one that's most volatile or harder to predict. The broadband service is, it's pretty steady, so there aren't a lot of changes there. So I would just be asking again for you to approve this, for me to report on to the Department of Local Government, and then again, next June, we'll be coming back and doing the amendments, but monthly, you will be seeing these estimates and then how we compare to those.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Melanie? Okay. If not, at this time, I'll entertain motions to approve the budget for the next fiscal year.
I'll make the motion.
Have a motion by Jones,
I'll second.
have a second by Stevens. Any other questions or discussion? Okay, if not, all those in favor of approving the budget for the next fiscal year signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say no. Motion passes. Number 6 is the superintendent's report, so I'll turn the floor over to Mr. Dave at this time.
All right. Yeah, a couple of items, and neither one of them are particularly great news in the reports category. So the first is the fuel cost adjustment. The July fuel cost adjustment is projected at it will be 3.829 cents per kilowatt hour, which is significantly higher than the forecast for July that was given to us earlier in the year. In January, when you look at the entire year, the forecast was roughly that the July fuel cost adjustment would be 2.375 cents. So what we're actually at now is about a 61% increase in that fuel cost adjustment. It's a penny and a half higher than what was forecast. I would say that it's very much driven by the commodity prices, particularly natural gas, but also coal is higher. That combined with even the power supply purchase costs that TVA does on the network, there's a combination of their own internal power plus what they purchase off the grid. All those costs are higher, and the purchase power costs are higher for the same reasons that TVA's internal power costs are higher, because natural gas costs are up and coal costs are up. So it's rippling through all sectors of the economy, and the electric cost is no different. When you look at where we are with the July fuel cost adjustment versus the 3-year average, it's 123% higher. Now, the reason for that is that during COVID, the costs were suppressed, natural gas costs were way down, everything was way down. So it's just still a fair comparison to look back over the last 3 years. And, so that's having a significant negative impact. The forecast for it is that it's gonna gradually come down, but we're not looking at getting down below 3 cents for that fuel cost adjustment until probably December or January. So it's definitely quite a bit higher than what we thought it would be at this point. Any questions on?
It's just weird to see that their projections would say we'd go down in December, January, when your demand seems like for gas and commodities would be higher.
Well,
that time of year.
yeah, and
So-
I don't know if it's wishful thinking or not, but
I'm just saying,
I would agree.
it's hard to,
Mhm.
it's hard to see how that could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the other item is, looking at the power trouble for May. So we had 43 outages in May. And the conversation around the building is, even continues in June, is that we just haven't seen anything like what we're experiencing with outages. It's a lot of, it's a variety of everything. We've had a couple of semi-truck communication cable incidents, not hitting our communication cable, but and it was during the hottest times and these trucks were going into driveways where they normally wouldn't go, but they still should be able to go. So that caused a couple of outages, car pole accidents. But then what we really, I think, are seeing is an increase because of tree trimming. We've been really good at continuing to hit the hot spots with tree trimming. But several years ago, they went through and they did quite an extensive tree trimming. And of course, that also was viewed in some ways negatively by the community. So once that was done, backed off a bit. And now we do a more targeted tree trimming. But we're gonna take a look at being more methodical about just hitting each part of the distribution system every 4 to 6 years, getting more on a cycle trimming. Because all of the outages that you look at, if you turn the page to the graph that has it broken out, trees only show 2 outages, but weather is 12. Well, most of the weather is still trees, either wind or, wind causing a tree to break off and hit and those sorts of things. There's a few other things that weather could cause, but it's still mainly trees when you look at that. When you look at the animal environment causes and the unknown, we think that a lot of, and this is true for other utilities, even like cable or phone, as the trees grow closer to the lines, it just gives an easy pathway for squirrels in particular to get on the lines. And that causes outages. Having the trees cut back, the squirrels would have to basically climb the utility pole to get up there, and they're just not as likely to do that as they are to be in the tree. So even some of the animal caused outages are because the trees are growing closer to the line, So that we're gonna take a more focused approach on tree trimming and get into what I would call a cycle trimming type of approach.
So we're probably quickly approaching that 4 to 6 year window at this point, or
I
that
think
cycle
so.
at this
Where-
point.
Yeah, no, we over the last, I don't know when exactly the time frame was where they did the major tree trimming, but since that time, we've been doing this more targeted. So instead of really going back to the starting of where we, and hitting everything on that distribution system. So we'll still have to target it where we have trouble spots. We'll be pulling a crew off and sending them to the targeted area, but we're gonna really start with a circuit and get the whole thing trimmed, and then move on to the next circuit and get the whole thing trimmed. And, what, we have some work to do there, is we really started, when we started looking at the May trouble and then also analyzing June, we're like, okay, this just can't continue, It seems to just sprung up all of a sudden in the last probably 3 or 4 months,
Yeah.
It wasn't really an issue last year. It's just, with this cycle of growth, it's just really become an issue, so. So we'll get working on that. See if there's anything else that, yeah, no, that's all I really wanted to cover there, so,
That's all?
yeah.
Okay. Any questions for Dave on the report there? Okay. Thank you, Dave, for that report.
Mhm.
Number 7, new or old business. Is there anything we need to discuss with that?
So one of the things that you and I talked about, Glenn, is to give just a heads up on things that aren't necessarily on the agenda. We don't really need to discuss them tonight, but to know that they'll be presented in future meetings for either discussion or for votes and things like that. So in July, what we'll probably be looking at is to get approval to do upgrades to the Donnelly substation. That would be approximately $70,000. Now this is money that would be considered in our capital budget, basically to do maintenance and work. But that's a specific project that we're looking at right now, just to give you a heads up on it. And when we present it, we'll walk through it, what it actually is and the details and why it's necessary and those sorts of things. So I'm also hoping to revisit the EV charging station proposal in July. Looking to get, so just some background, because we talked about this first of all before Bo and Troy joined the board. TVA has a program that they will rebate basically 80% of a project cost to install DC fast charging stations. And we put together a project that is roughly $200,000 in total cost, which includes 2 DC fast chargers, the cement work and everything like that to mount them, the lining the parking lot, that sort of thing, and then the work that we would have to do on our distribution system. So that's what the project is. Our EPB share is $40,000 of that. We felt that was a little bit too high still, because we don't know what the impact of really if these chargers are gonna benefit the ratepayer. So but the city's also interested in seeing this happen, and the state has a number of different funds. So what we're looking for is another $25,000 to help offset our $40,000. So really our contribution at that point would be $15,000. And that largely would be our labor and materials, which are gonna benefit, this distribution system as well as just these EV chargers. So that we're gonna, if we get that $25,000 commitment, then we'll bring it back in July. If we don't, I probably won't bring it back. So just so you know.
And that would be 2 chargers?
2 DC fast chargers, and we're looking to install them somewhere or near the square.
Mhm. Do we know, well, I'm sure once we get the data, how long, so that would be 1 vehicle per charger?
Yep.
I wonder what the average charge time is per vehicle.
What we're hearing with these chargers is that somewhere in the neighborhood of a 400-mile range can be charged in somewhere around a half an hour. I think it really varies on the car and
Sure.
but the size of each charger is 62.5 kW. So the whole installation would be 150 kW or 125. I'm sorry. So that's a lot of power.
Mhm.
And but yeah, it'd be roughly a half hour for
And
a fast charge.
currently, do we know how many, in the city of Glasgow, how many chargers do we currently have?
I don't really know. There's got to be a few in
Tom
customers.
Franklin's got one, Gator High's got one.
Yeah.
Yep.
Is the hospital?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, hospital.
And none of those are level 3 chargers, you know, the fast chargers, they're either.
Oh, so
either
that would be the difference.
Level 1.
Yeah,
or
we
level
have 4 at the
two.
hospital, but they're nothing like what he's talking about.
Like what
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
do, okay.
Yeah.
That's big,
So this would be for, you know, a tourist to come in, charge the car, it doesn't take them more than a half hour to an hour. So, and if they're downtown in the square, the idea is that they would just be, you know, in that area. Whether it's.
Or to give
shop-
them an opportunity as they're driving, isn't that one of TVA's requirements? To
Yeah.
be within a mile of,
So we have to be within a mile of Cumberland Parkway.
yeah.
But they're
I know that's a
willing,
little bit beyond, but.
yeah, we're a little bit beyond when we get to the square, but they're willing to still fund it for that.
Close
Yeah.
enough
Yeah.
to draw
Yeah.
tourism.
But it's
Yeah.
part of this, yeah, it's part of
But
the
for the
TVA
30 minutes or
program.
so that somebody's gonna be here,
Sure.
that puts them on the square, you know.
Yeah.
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 And
So.
and then they see something that, you know,
Sure.
but,
We saw the location on the EPB tour, and I liked the
Yeah.
location where they had
Yeah.
proposed to put
Yeah.
the chargers.
yeah.
So, there's those two items, and then, in August, we'll be, hopefully, have the rate adjustment proposal that we'll be bringing forward. That'll be a lot of discussion in August. And even prior to that, there might be some opportunities to discuss it. And then I would say in September, we've been talking, so with the employee benefits, we have a flex spending program. And the dollar amount that we currently provide to each employee to apply toward health insurance or you know, eye care or, what are the other things that they can use it for, Mel?
Any type of insurance, basically.
Yeah.
Vision, dental, health.
And then they
Life
can also put
insurance.
whatever's left over, if there's any left, into like an HSA, if they choose that type of plan, a health savings account. Anyway, that amount has been the same since 2006 and hasn't been adjusted, you know, and so now family plan benefits are quite a bit higher than that amount. So we're looking at making some adjustments to that, which will go into effect the first of the year. But that's what I have in mind for presenting in September or October. So that's about it,
Okay.
as far as things coming down the pipeline.
All right, thanks. Any questions for Dave? Anything else? Okay, the final item is the adjourn. So I'll entertain a
Motion.
motion. Have a motion by Witcher,
Second.
second by Jones. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed, say no. Meeting is adjourned.